Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast, where we talk with early-stage entrepreneurs and to understand what information they use to inform product roadmap, strategy, and market differentiation. Want regular updates on moves your competitors are making? You can learn more at startupcompetitors.com.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. Today we're chatting with Johnston Harris, who's the co-founder and CEO of Appsurify. Appsherify is a tool that helps with test automation, allowing teams to get faster feedback on areas of the product that have changed and helping target tests specifically to those areas. Johnston does a great job of kind of laying out the business problem, what they're trying to solve, and current status of the company. We go into kind of a little bit of the history, the problem they're trying to solve, how they're approaching it, current beta customers, traction they're seeing in the market, roadmap in the short term in terms of partners that they want to integrate with and how they're thinking about approaching the market. It's a little technical in some spots based on my interest in software testing as a background, but I think most of it stays high level enough that it's still going to be interesting to folks who are just thinking about taking product to market. And certainly if you're a software developer, I think you'll find all of it interesting. You can learn more about them at appsurify.com. And I'm positive Johnston would be happy if you reached out to him on LinkedIn to get an update from him. And I believe at the time that this goes out, they've just launched a brand new website. So you can also go check that out and see some of the new stuff that they've got on the roadmap that I don't think we covered in detail on the podcast. Hope you enjoy this one. Thanks so much for listening.
Most founders start companies because they figured out a better way to solve a problem or serve a need. Not because they love tracking payroll, filling out compliance forms, and explaining employee benefits packages. And yet, all that stuff still has to be done. That's why there's Full Stack PEO. Full Stack PEO specializes in turnkey HR for emerging companies. Not just those core services, but advice and expertise that helps founders maximize employee potential. Curious? Find more at fullstackpeo.com.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we have Johnston Harris, who's the co-founder and CEO of Appsurify. Johnston, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Why don't we open things up with a quick pitch for Appsurify?
Yeah, so essentially Appsurify is for any organization with software development that's looking to ship product faster, faster time to market with fewer defects by optimizing their software testing.
Let's go one level deeper. What does that mean?
Essentially, tech titans, Facebook and Google do this. They leverage machine learning to determine which areas of the application have changed with a recent developer commit or change the application, and are able just to focus on the testing of that subset of the application rather than testing the whole application. So what this means is, rather than testing a whole application, which could take days or hours, you're now testing a very small portion of it. So you get immediate feedback to developers for them to continue on their day, which basically means that as soon as they make a change to the application, they no longer have to wait for testing, hours later for results to come back in order to continue working. Right when they make a change, they can get immediate feedback from testing so they can continue on their day.
And is Appsurify generating those tests automatically on its own? Is it leveraging existing suites of tests that have been built up over time and just deploying those more smartly? What's actually happening behind the scenes?
Right, yeah. So the great thing about Appsurify is it plugs right into existing test environments. So one of the things is we want there to be already to be an existing test practice, whether it be manual or automation. Automation is really kind of our bread and butter for Selenium, Appium, or Cucumber, big open source test frameworks. Those test frameworks take a very long time to run, to complete, and get results back. So what we're doing is basically making them smarter. Rather than, say, an application or a test suite that has 1,000 tests, we're able to determine a subset of tests, say 50, only those 50 have changed. So why run 1,000 tests when only 50 have changed? So that means a 95% drop in the amount of tests you're running, which significantly lowers the resource utilization rate, and whether it be local or in the cloud. So you can expect to get results back from quality assurance teams, from testers, 95% faster.
And what are some of the heuristics that are being used to determine which tests are needed based on the changes? Is that all just based on code coverage? What are some of the things driving that?
Basically, we analyzed the repository, the history of the commits, the changes from the developers. Originally, we sat in monitoring mode for about a week, learning from the recent commits and the changes, so that when we turn it on, we can say with 92% confidence, we can run a subset, say a 10% subset of the test suite and still detect and catch 98.7% of the defects. Now we actually have auto mapping so that we can get those results probably in about 24 hours after plugging this in. So the parameters are really history of failures in the automation suite. So really any automation suite that generates an XML, JUnit type formatting is very easy, which is basically the bulk of them. We can read that, the failure history, to predict the likelihood of failure. And so with that prediction, able to determine which test to run given a recent change to the application.
Got it. And hit me with kind of current status of the company. That the idea here is to kind of paint a picture of where you're at on the roadmap. Are you still two guys in a garage? Are you just doing your $1 billion Robinhood fundraise, which is crazy? It could be any metrics you want to share: customers, employees, revenue, fundraising, number of tests executed worldwide, anything that kind of paints a picture.
Right. So we're fully bootstrapped. I synced up with my co-founder, James Ferrier. He's based out of New Zealand. He has about 15 years in software testing experience. He's a keynote speaker at some of the major Star West software testing conferences in the world. And he saw this problem happening a lot for the various companies working at Pfizer. And so he dropped ship and about 2.5 years ago started, developing this concept. In 2019, went MVP at the end of 2019, 2020 with the beta, and then we just went general release at the end of 2020. We have about 10 enterprise trials going on. We've just converted 2 of them, and we're circulating. So we are revenue positive. We are looking to scale. We've proven product market fit. We have Fortune 500 trials. The larger the company, the more value we can bring. But we are looking to raise here probably the next 3 to 4 months a seed round to kind of scale out our growth, because this is a highly scalable product that just plugs right into existing test practices just to make them smarter and faster.
Congratulations. Awesome that you bootstrapped it up to this point, and awesome that you're cash flow positive,
It
man.
wasn't easy, but yeah, we did it. I mean, it's great to have a technical co-founder that's extreme expert in this space. We like to say built by testers for testers. He just lived the pain for too long and just says, I think I can do something better. And when I mentioned about the tech titans, Facebook and Google, is that before he had already developed this concept and patented it. And that's when Google and Facebook actually released white papers about their best practice in software testing. And it somewhat mirrored what we've built. So it's great to say, test, run your software test practice like the big guys can do. What we've done is we've made it available for everyone else.
So walk me through that customer targeting then. So who's an ideal customer for this product?
Ideal customer is really anyone with a software development department. It could be a mom and pop shop with 3 to 5 developers generating, an MVP of some sort. It could be a Series A company. It could be a Fortune 500. Anyone that, finds that their software development is being bottlenecked in productivity by software testing. Because developers can only work as fast as they know that they're generating quality code. So every time they make a change to the application, if they have to wait an hour for test results to come back, that's an hour of downtime a day. Now, depending on how many times they make changes, could be 2 times a day, could be 3 times a day, say 60 minutes wait time per, which is very common. That's roughly 2 to 3 hours of downtime wasted, where they're, grabbing a cup of coffee or, moving on to something else, which context switching in our profession actually only leads to more bugs. So if we're able to drop that 60 minutes, window of wait time down to 60 seconds, which we've done, that is phenomenal productivity savings. So really anyone who's looking to test earlier, test faster, find bugs faster, and get product quality out the door faster, because growing demands, especially with the pandemic, it's accelerated digital transformation by Gartner, according to Gartner, by about 6 years. So there's extreme demands on companies right now to move more digitally. And what that means is they have to become more feature rich, have to get new product out the door faster with shorter timelines, whether you're in DevOps or Agile, just trying to continuously hit these sprints and release deadlines. And they're getting harder and harder to hit. So if you're able to remove a bottleneck of information from software testing to software development, that's a huge productivity savings and cost savings along the way.
So put the usage of a product like this in maybe in a little bit more of an overall kind of product methodology context, and I'll unpack that just a little bit. So, when I reflect back on larger projects that I've been a part of where this is typically a problem, right? So we've got a bunch of unit tests, we've got a bunch of API tests, we've got a bunch of end-to-end kind of automated scripts that are out there banging on a GUI, maybe some other things, right? So there's a bunch of assets out there that can blow up to be very, very big. Certainly know that pain. But then there's a bunch of other testing efforts that might be taking place that maybe have nothing to do with the automation, right? So any sort of manual testing, things around data, security, performance, all the, various ilities, which are kind of complementary and can kind of, phase in and out on a project just based on kind of key milestones and what the team is focused on at any point in time. Where do you, when you like zoom out and look at a more mature company and process, which may have a lot of assets over time, where does this fit into that kind of broader context? How do you position it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll kind of provide a little narrative there. We actually, one of our trials is a major manufacturing company, which is a household name brand. And they have these power drills that have these lasers associated with them. Those lasers have to be, pinpoint accuracy, nanosecond technology. And, the application for that is massive, absolutely massive, tens of millions of lines of code. And they have all these, tens of thousands of unit tests. So I'll just say 10,000 unit tests just for simplicity. So when we went in there, every time they made a change to it, they had to run 10,000 units tests, which took some time. And once after about 5 days, we're able to determine only these 500 unit tests need to be run rather than all 10,000. So what took out a 30-minute window or 30-minute time wasting down to 3 minutes. They needed to test less scripts for automation suites. So imagine only testing 10% of your automation suite, but still catching 98% of the bugs. You're just going to be able to move so much faster. We're not saying don't test everything. That's one thing that I want to make extremely clear is we're not saying never run your entire full automation test suite ever again. But instead, you now don't have to run it continuously and hitting, local infrastructure or a cloud bill. But what we're saying is test smaller increments, faster, sooner, and get the important feedback to developers in hand during the workday. So they're far more productive rather than waiting on the sidelines, waiting for the big bulk of feedback after an hour. So that's really automation suites, is finding that subset of tests and running that subset more frequently during the day. For manual testing, we also do provide value because we know that it's very cumbersome, very time consuming, and we're able to actually shine a light in the dark and pinpoint what area of the application has most likely changed. We have something it's called the risk map. It looks like a pie graph. And this pie graph is in various segments or portions. And it's starts green. And then for portions of the application, whether it be the account section or of your Netflix, the streaming section, we're able to highlight that to a very granular level, the portion of the application that's changed and highlight it either yellow or red, depending on the nature of the change. So for automation testing, it's great, whether you're only 30% coverage or 50% coverage, we would be able to test far faster. For the types of testing that cannot be automated, as you said, security, performance, we do provide value and allow the manual testers who normally have to have a pretty strong history of understanding of the application. If you lose a manual tester, it takes a very long time to train a new manual tester on the application. So whether it be an old tester or a new tester, we can provide them a map to where the bugs are and help them just focus their manual testing on a subset of the tests or a subset of the application through a visual pie graph. So that makes it easier. So we hit both sides, both automation testing and manual testing.
When you lay out that risk map, as a user, what are my options to kind of overlay my understanding of risk, whether it's, not just an area of the product, but, maybe even different aspects within that area, which could be, anything from like calculations to data to integrations to, there's tons of things that I might be thinking about when I'm trying to assess risk for a different area. How complicated is that today? And when you think about product roadmap, where do you see that going down the road? Because to me, as a former tester who used to do this stuff all the time, that's always the hardest part, right? Is how do you make risk visible and get that shared understanding with the team and be able to dive to that next level of detail around where the current unknown risk really lies.
Yeah, so that's where the value of our machine learning algorithm really kind of comes into play, is that by analyzing the history of the failures and the history of the defects and the bugs and introductions, we're able to really, with a weirdly accurate 99% accuracy, where the defects are most likely to lie given a recent change. And that applies to both automation testing and manual testing. So a visual pie chart, you can dig into the account section and find the portion of the application and kind of focus your testing there. Any more technical deep, I'll probably have to bring in my technical founder, James, for that. But I can talk about the technical roadmap. I'm the business side founder. He is the brains behind the operation, the mad scientist, you say.
It's all good. Just one question on and I know you don't have to walk me through the whole ML process, but based on something that you said, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the inputs correctly. So it's looking at source code, it's looking at the tests that have run and conceivably where they failed. It's also looking at a defect repository and what types of bugs have been logged and categorized. And
it's definitely everything you said: the source code, the repository, the history of commits, history of the failures, most importantly. So when the Selenium generates its output, whether it be in XML format, we can have pass fail, and we can have the mapping of the basically functional areas of the code mapped to the scripts. So given what test has failed, we're able to map it to a certain section of the code. And that used to be a manual process a year ago, but now we automate that process so that when somebody plugs in our application, our machine learning algorithm, after one or two commits, is able to map the test to the functional areas of the code. And yes, we do have integration with Jira with automatically open and close defects. I hope I answered somewhat of your question.
Yes. I have two possible, and maybe this is a question for the co-founder, but so two possible questions, concerns. One, from a testing perspective, like understanding where a test fails is where an automated test fails is one thing, but there's that's only I guess to me, that's only half the problem, right? There's also then what failed, why did it fail, all the defects that are found that aren't currently captured in an automated test, right? Like all of that's going to speak to fragility from an algorithm perspective. That would be stuff that ideally I'd love to see as well, which I guess is why I was going back to like, what's it pulling from the defect database for some of those sections as well? Is this, nope, we're 100% laser focused on test automation and that's where we want to live and that's our swim lane?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how best to answer your question because for the parameters of learning about the failures, we have probably over 100 different parameters, like time of commit, the history of the developer's commits, what time of day, if the type of code, the challenging area of the code, if it's likely to have defects based on past failures. We also quarantine flaky failures, so tests that have failed for no apparent reason or changed the code. We're able to determine basically non-deterministic tests, so tests failed for with no change because of a browser crashing or phone crashing, and that didn't change. So we're able to quarantine that and set that aside to allow the team to pass the build. I think to answer your question, we are highly focused on the automation test suite and performing that. When it comes to the defect repository, I do believe we learn from that, the history of that to allow to be more accurate in it. But any further that I'll probably have to rely on my technical co-founder to kind of answer that more fully. And I apologize if I'm missing the answer to your question.
You're all good. Don't worry about it. And I know I'm walking a fine line here, so it's all good. I guess last one kind of on that thread. When I think, so I'm trying to build, I obviously haven't used the product, but when I'm trying to build like an analogous experience, I think back to 20 years ago, there were tools in the market that we were using that mapped test execution to specific lines in the code and commits and all that kind of stuff. And that piece of technology is not necessarily new, right? That's been around for 20 years. I guess when you reflect on, what Appsurify is bringing to the market today that kind of really differentiates against maybe some of those more enterprise legacy tools that did that 20 years ago, what's the big compelling difference now versus then?
Yeah, so what we're able to do for automation tests is basically allow teams to test more frequently throughout the day, because we're able to basically determine the area of the application that has changed and determine the test associated with those changes. Because our machine learning algorithm gets smarter over time, after a day, you probably see an 80% drop in the amount of time it takes for your team to get test feedback. After about 14 days, it's circling around 90%. One of our recent trials, we're hovering around 95%. So if your team was very common, build out these big automation test suites, they become, they balloon in size from 100 scripts to 1,000 scripts. And whether it be Selenium, Appium, Cucumber, these open source frameworks, and they just start to take a very long time to complete. So we allow teams to basically swim through the muck and determine which subset of tests are most important to run in that given time to get that feedback to developers so they can continue working on their task at hand, sitting in one sitting. Because when a developer sets out for a task in the day, if he's having to multitask, like he completes a task, sends it off, and then he knows he has an hour to kill, he's going to hop throughout to different tasks, 2 to 3 different tasks throughout the day. But statistics show that actually leads to more problems, actually, defects being introduced, because he could potentially be building on other defects because he's not, he's continuing his day without knowing if he's made a mistake or not. So if he's able to sit down and start on one task, and when he submits the code, the change, and he gets it immediately back in seconds and finish that one task in one sitting, that's far more productive than multitasking throughout the day and potentially making mistakes. So he can know with confidence that he's submitting code, getting it feedback, and it's quality and being shipped out. And from our statistics right now, we're seeing from software development teams basically hitting release deadlines and 20% less, 28% more productivity throughout the day for a developer that has this immediate feedback in his hands right when he makes a code change.
Got it. Let's switch gears to some more business-focused questions. I'll get you back in your swim lane. When you think about customer acquisition for this product, walk me through kind of how you're thinking about that today. Is this something where you want to go to market with other tool providers? Is this something where you want to embed yourself in certain communities because they're, kind of religious about this kind of thing? Like, how are you thinking about kind of the next phase of growth and how you get the first 1,000 customers?
Sure. Yeah. So right now, if you want to use, plug-in TestBrain, Appsurify TestBrain, you can either do it in the cloud via SaaS offering or on premises. And depending on different, security concerns, like we thought that it would only be a cloud offering, but having with some big enterprise trials, security was definitely a chief concern because we're getting, basically reading and writing to the repository. That's very sensitive data in a lot of cases. So we built an on-premise solution to help, those industries and those companies that have those very strict, stringent security parameters. That's a fully functional, a lot of integration, very feature-rich solution right now. What we're very excited about in about a month is going to be releasing TestBrain Community, which would be a free download to install locally that'll give basically time and resources back to any development team that's looking just to speed up their software testing. This would be basically kind of like a freemium tool, so to speak, that you'll be able to use a select amount of features, really our core value proposition of basically faster test times. And if you find that you want some more additional features, you could potentially upgrade to the next level where you could have that quarantine of flaky failures, next level support, additional integrations, additional languages, so forth. So really we're going to have this lower barrier to entry because it's going to be less of an entry point for companies because you can use this for free for as long as you wish. If you're, a 3 to 5 person, development shop working on your MVP, you can use our free tool for as long as you want. We just ask that, you share it, you share the love because it's a great tool. And this tool was really built because there's such pain in the software testing community because they're based off legacy systems that just have not been innovated very much in the recent decade, and allowing that team to benefit from the latest and greatest for free and to use it. So if they want to download it, install a VM and push it out to their team, so be it. That'll be widely available in 1 month's time.
Got it. And then is there any particular segment of that community you're focused on out of the gate from a marketing and sales perspective?
Automation engineers would probably be our micro niche. Like quality assurance teams is definitely who we're speaking to, is because they're the ones that are running the manual testing or the automation suites or managing it, writing the scripts. This messaging really resonates most with quality assurance teams and automation engineers in particular. But it's also for a developer who, in DevOps communities, shift left is a big, term that's being thrown around a lot. And what that means is basically shifting testing to the left where it's closer to the coding or development stage. And if you can bring testing closer to coding, you're going to, catch defects earlier rather than catching defects later, which is far more costly. So for developers who also now have a hand in testing, especially in DevOps teams, this also plays very well to that. So really, quality assurance teams, DevOps teams, and any software development team that's looking to speed up their software development because they find that software testing is a big bottleneck to productivity.
Johnston, very important question. What kind of swag, if I join the Appsurify team, or if I'm one of your key customers, beta customers, what kind of swag do I get?
I'll mail you a T-shirt. How about that?
What? You are right on. You already got them. What's on the T-shirt?
So we're coming out with a new website here. Also, pretty cool announcement. If you go to the website today, versus probably in about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, you're going to see a completely different view of us website redesign. It's going to be way more interactive. It's going to showcase our latest product strategy and our latest new product suites. So with that, we're going to have some pretty cool. It's like the Test Brain logo, kind of the Test Brain logo on the T-shirt. So that'd be something to share. We don't have much more than that, but we got something.
Very cool. That's the place to start. If you need a T-shirt for your startup that you're getting off the ground, you can reach out to our friends at Fuel Merchandise Group. You can find them at fuelmerchandise.com. Mention startup competitors, get 10% off your first order. When you think of competitors for Appsurify, who or what comes to mind? Specifically, when you kind of think of those particular personas that you just laid out, right? The automation engineer, the DevOps or developer who wants to, get access to these resources sooner, faster, or even a quality assurance team, at a higher level. Who are you competing with for Mindshare there?
So there's definitely in this space, there's a lot of jargon that's thrown around. Faster automation tests, make your automation tests, cleaner, faster, and easier. And what they're really saying, those are the Mabels, Functionize, Testums. What they're really saying is rip and replace your open source, hard-earned sweat, blood, and tears open source frameworks that you spent, months building out, and horizontally shift. Forklift shift to their low-code platform, where they'll write the test scripts out for you. Mabel is a very good contender in this space. These low-code platforms where a junior tester could basically low-code write out these test scripts, but it's a paid-for platform. And what inevitably happens at the end of the day with Mabel is that if you start building up the test suite on low-code scripts test suites, it's going to start to take a long time to run. Again, just like what happened with Selenium mapping the open source frameworks. So we see these guys as somewhat indirect competitors, these low-code platforms, because our technology still can work in the background. We're very much in the background, just making things go smarter and faster. We have obviously a very integrated user interface, but it's really set it and forget it in a lot of ways. Once it's plugged into the environment, you really kind of just let it go. And developers are like, why am I seeing feedback so fast? Which is really kind of a cool conversation to have. But when it comes to the competitors, really, we're pretty early to the market with this. And we have the patent. We have the provisional patent. We're filing the non-provisional patent in next 15 days. And we're pretty excited about that. So really what we see as competitors, we also could see as down the line strategic integration partners.
Yeah, walk through that line of strategic thinking for a second. When you line up the kind of platforms and places you want to integrate with out of the box, just hit me with your top 3 to 5. Who's on that dream bucket list of these are the ones that we'd really like to get out there quick?
Yeah. So we just brought on the CEO of SmartBear, Frank Rowe, as one of our advisors.
Congrats.
And 800-pound gorilla in the DevOps space. And they own Cucumber. And Cucumber is an open source test framework for BDD in the space. And that would be a great partner to kind of get out of the gate and start providing value with, because Cucumber is a great tool, but it does suffer from long test runs. So that's going to be kind of a target audience for us. So we see ourselves, really targeting the Selenium, Appium, Cucumber, open source test frameworks audience very early on. And we're excited about the freemium strategies because it helps us get in the door easier and helps provide value to people who may not want to pay for a tool, but could still benefit from it. Did that answer your question? I think there's a second part to your question.
Just rattle off a couple more. Who's if you were thinking of places where somebody lands on your website and they see the section that says integrates with, what are some of the other logos that are there?
Well, we are code agnostic. So Java, JavaScript, C#, Python, Ruby. We are completely agnostic to whatever code they're writing We plug into any Git-based repository, also Microsoft Perforce being one other. We're coming out with a new integration with SVN repositories, which is kind of an older legacy one, but it's actually still pretty prevalent. But it's really our bread and butter is any Git-based, Bitbucket, so forth. And work with any test framework, any one that provides JUnit, XML output, which is the bulk of them. Integrate with the bug tracking tool Jira. And we have other plugins, integrations kind of on the way, but those are kind of in user demand. Those are really kind of, from what our 10 trials currently have kind of helped us to hone in on what the bulk, 80% coverage of the marketplace is. We're finding that if you're a Git-based repository, you have an active CI/CD pipeline, such as Jenkins or Circle CI, or Travis, and you have a large Selenium automation test suite, you're really a great candidate to try this thing out and plug this in and get off into the races, because that's really kind of our bread and butter.
For the trials that that was a great answer, by the way. Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to just roll forward. That was great. For the trials that you've launched, how much of a role are you playing in kind of actively getting those implementations off the ground and making them successful? Or is it truly like they're agreeing to use it, they're self-implementing, self-rolling it out, figuring out on their own? Curious what the kind of setup cost or tax is for an organization that decides to move forward.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the cool thing about all of our 10 big trials are, and these are large, 100 plus developer teams, was it was all organic. We didn't do any marketing. We're fully bootstrapped. This is all through internal channels. Basically say, hey, based on LinkedIn, we created a LinkedIn page, follow us on Appsurify. And people kind of came to us, say, hey, this actually sounds really interesting. So we're really pretty excited about that because we're achieving product market fit. We've already achieved it. And now we've just converted two of our first paying enterprise customers. And now we're going to scale that out. I'm trying to think of what the second part of your question was.
Are they implementing it themselves, or are you helping them implement it?
So as I mentioned earlier about the professional, basically, if you go to our website right now, you'll need to have a basically installation call with James or one of our developers. And it's really just, if you want to go on the cloud, it's really just, we set up an instance in the cloud, connect a repository, analyzing the code commits, and you're pretty much up and running within an hour. Pretty straightforward. It's really up in an hour. If you want to do on premises, we are completely firewalled off. That's your information. That's your data. That's your security. You just got to stand up a VM, download us, connect yourself to the repository, install a script in the CI/CD pipeline, and then you're off to the races. It may take about an hour, again, but it may take an hour and a half, something like that. So right now, there's a little bit of handholding for people that are not familiar with this, but for the bulk of them, they've been able to do it themselves and be able to tweak it as they see fit. And our user interface is very intuitive. We have a YouTube video that's just kind of goes through a 10-minute technical demonstration that kind of walks you through the user interface. But the great cool thing about our freemium tool that we're going to be releasing in a month is for Community Plus, it's going to be completely self-sufficient, self-reliant. Allow somebody, if they want this thing, click, download, install, off in 15 minutes or less. It's going to be a much more streamlined installation up and running approach than what we currently have right now. What we have right now is for everybody, but it just requires a little bit of handholding to get up and running in the case. But we're talking about a 1-hour installation call. This new freemium tool is you're going to be doing it in 5 minutes yourself.
Right on. Earlier, you had said, you feel like you've proven product market fit. With only a handful of customers, that feels early to me, in my experience, to say we've proven product market fit. What are the things that you've seen that make you so confident that, like, yep, we nailed it. This is it. This is the product. We're good to go.
Really the feedback on the phone calls. So when we put together, after the trial, we put together an ROI analysis of what we can save them. And when they see their test results going from 2 hours down to under 15 minutes, and that's productivity back in their pocket, rather than running 1,000 tests, they run 70. That's real tangible savings. Also, a note that I haven't mentioned is that we can save significant tangible savings if they're running their tests in the cloud. One of our enterprise trials is running basically browser stack, to be honest, up in the cloud, and they're spending about $10,000 a month on Azure resources, just spending a lot of money. Because we're pushing up tests that are only important rather than the whole automation suite, you're now only testing 5% rather than 100%. So we've been able to reduce their cloud bill by over 90% on a monthly basis, from a $10,000 a month down to under $1,000 a month. That's $9,000 delta right back in their back pocket. And we're a very economical solution. And we're so economical that tied with the productivity savings, we're able to provide them an over 4,000% ROI. This thing pays for itself within a month because it's so scalable and it's very hands-off and it's plug and play. So that alone, just the time savings and the value and the economical point that we're coming in, the value savings, gets people really excited when we talk to them. And just words that we've heard on the phone calls is fantastic. It's like my team is just pumping out product faster than I've ever seen. Flaky tests no longer chew up quality assurance teams' time chasing after tests that fail for no apparent reason. So we take these big, bulky, open source frameworks that are unstable or fail for no apparent reason, clean it up, make it easier to manage, make it faster, make it smarter, so that teams no longer look at software testing as a headache anymore, but now as a facilitator to helping them push product out the door faster.
All right, Johnston, if folks want to learn more about Appsurify or if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so go to our website, submit us, contact us. Happy to reach out, happy to have any phone conversation. Visit us on our website, Appsurify.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. We are pretty active on a post. We actually just recently ranked the QA lead, which is a cool new platform for quality assurance teams. We're actually ranked number 4 for them to automation tools and what we're doing. So please reach out. I'd love to talk to you if you'd like to talk about, cutting costs in software testing, getting product out the door faster.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Enjoyed it.
Startup Competitors provides monthly handcrafted email updates on your top competitors. Keep up to date on new hires, marketing activities, events, awards, new product launches, pricing changes, funding, and a bunch more. Learn more at startupcompetitors.com.